Oh yeah, they were an advanced civilization. I mean, the village was very extensive.
Dogs were kept as scaveners, used for hunting, and may have been family pets.
Axe heads.
Yeah, these are axe heads.
Yeah. Look at that one over there, the big one. See that?
Uh-huh. How do you even lift that to swing it? Pretty cool. The beaded burial. It's in Mound 72. It's at Mound 72. It's where all the elites, the leaders, the chiefs are all buried in this mound, so that they were they would surely experience the afterlife. It's kind of like the pyramids, you know. You had the pharaohs buried in the pyramids and the major mounds, and the elites always had the best of the best, while those there was a hierarchy, and the lower members of the tribe were either sacrificed or buried far away from a lot of the main mounds, like Mound 72. So we're at the Cahokia Mounds burial site. And you can see the mounds that are everywhere. Monk's Mound over to my right is the tallest of them all, and then you have dozens of other smaller mounds. Each mound had some significant value. There was hierarchy in this community or city. You had your elites or leaders, and then you had your warriors, and then the women, of course, who would grind corn, bear the children. Therefore, the leaders were buried in a special mound known as Mound 72, while in other mounds, smaller ones, may have been people of a lower class within the tribe that were buried there. We're going to go to a place called Twin Mounds and check it out. I'm doing some EVP. Now, this supposedly, folks, this is one of the most haunted sites in Illinois. So whether you visit it during the day or you visit it at night, it really doesn't matter, because the spirits will always be here and have for thousands of years. Even prior to a city, the natives settled this land probably 2000 BC. When the old ladies are done talking, folks, I'll continue this video. Okay. Now we're at Cahokia Mounds. Thank you. Giving the spirits something to think about. The ancient spirits that are supposedly roam this city. This city was about 6 square miles. And around 1300 AD, it was the largest city in the United States until the 1800s, when Philadelphia had 30,000 residents. It was larger than London in 1200 to 1300 AD. So it was a giant city, and it could have had as many as 50,000 people. I believe that this tribe that was here, people are like, where did they go? Where did they go? Well, the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incans supposedly had their main headquarters. I call it headquarters, but their cities, check this out, folks. Their cities were like capitals. And so it's believed that the Incans, the Mayans, and the Aztecs had capitals before the U.S. was settled. And that a lot of times people are like, where did they go? Because this civilization disappeared. It's simple. Back to Mexico or northward. Because a lot of the tribes in the United States were nomadic. They had more than one major city that they would reside at. And when they cleared out this village, when the ancients had left it, because of depletion of resources such as fish, food, deforestation of the trees, because you need the trees to burn fires, keep warm. When that occurred, they moved on. They moved on. Yeah. I know. This is Twin Mounds coming up. We'll see what it says about it. There's a lot of major mounds. This is a pretty good sized one in front of us. Looks like it's about 40 feet high. But this was the largest Indian site north of Mexico, covering 4,000 acres, over 120 mounds. And of course, some of the mounds are in peril. They want to build subdivisions. Like they did in Granite City, there's a cemetery they wanted to build a subdivision at. They started to move the graves. Cemetery became haunted. Imagine what would happen if bulldozers ran over these mounds and built homes. What would happen? Would you want to live on the property? Now, in the 1800s, when the pioneers came here, a couple decades later, let's say around 1870s and 80s, archaeologists began to excavate this site. So the excavations have begun in the 1800s because they want to know what civilization was here, or why were they here? What are these mounds? So in 1965, it was named a U.S. National Historic Landmark. However, there are some mounds that are in peril on the outskirts, since this is a city that stretched quite a ways here in just outside of the St. Louis area here in central Illinois. But coming here for me, folks, is a dream come true. I've heard about this site 15 years ago, and I'm finally walking around here. Just like McPike Mansion and the Olton Cemetery, I mean, these dreams are coming true on this trip. I'm seeing a lot of good places, including Cahokia Mounds. It's very forested, pretty, quiet. It says South Stockade. Excavations here in '68 discovered that 4 of the stockade walls ran through this part of the site, including one wall with a round bastion and 2 with rectangular bastions. The partial reconstruction seen here represents one of the open back bastions associated with the 3rd and 4th constructions of the wall. Excavations in 1988 found more sections of stockade wall and portions of round and rectangular bastions farther to the west. They also showed where the Mississippi had filled in part of the area before building the walls, probably from flooding. So the bastions basically were the walls of this major city. They would have ran for miles, is what they're saying. Oh shit, look, look, look. Right behind the bastions in the woods, there's a deer, folks. I was just walking out here to... Yeah, I followed that deer. He's over there. I mean, she's over there. It's a doe. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a fawn. I don't know where the doe is or the mother. She's probably around close by. Could be a buck nearby, too, because they don't usually leave them too far away from the mama and the dada. You know what I'm saying? Daddy buck might come charging through. Well, I mean, she's just grazing, eating leaves and stuff. When she seen me, she looked and darted, and then she stopped for a second, stared at me, and then walked off slow. She kept some distance, but she didn't run from me. It's just keeping a distance in the woods following us right now. They're cutting a tree down. Oh, fucking, oh no. Cutting my trees. I'm gonna have to go say something. No, they look just as good dead. They're trees. They collect when snow's on them. They're dangerous to who? You're not gonna you're not gonna stand there in a windstorm. I mean, you know. This area that you see that we're hiking on was first settled in 700 AD by the woodland Indians. Yes, it's not free of it's not a no-fly zone area, folks. There are planes that go over these mountains. Anyhow, as I was saying, 700 AD is when this area was settled by the woodland Indians. They were living in villages along Cahokia Creek and surrounding areas where they hunted, fished, used the rivers to cultivate. You got to remember, we're close to the Mississippi. A lot of shell middens or mounds and Indian village sites, and this is one of them, one of the largest. And from around, I guess, 1000 AD, the culture that was here began to build civilized communities, like this complex of mounds. They had their own social and political structure. Like I said, hierarchy, growing corn, squash. They could also grow other herbs for medicinal benefits. They hunted, they fished. You have the buffalo. You have a buffalo fish, which gets gigantic, 3 feet, 4 feet long back in those days. And they're like grouper. That's what they look like. And blue catfish, which could feed an entire village. He caught a couple 80-pound catfish. That's a meal. Hunt a couple deer. So the natives, they ate quite well here. It was abundant with wildlife, trees, fish, small game. So in about 1050 AD, this became a regional center. It was surrounded by a lot of Native American villages, farms, social communities. The locals or the local natives began burying their dead in these mounds. Like, see, here's a burial mound right in front of us. And what would happen is, after building enough mounds, they began to build a major city around here. And about 1050 to 1200, over 6 square miles of this city had peaked, surrounding these ancient ceremonial mounds. This must be right here, Mound 72, where the leaders are buried, the kings. And they didn't have a lot of kings. That's why the mound would be small, because they would only have, in a couple hundred years, very few leaders. Because leaders or chiefs of the city would stay a chief for 80 years. They were brave at 13 years old, did something heroic in a major battle, became the chief, and could live as a chief for 80 years before the next chief would be named within the tribe. This is Mound 72. We're in the right area. And it says archaeologists from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, led by Dr. Melvin Fowler, excavated about 2/3 of Mound 72 from 1967 to 1971. He selected this mound because it was he figured along a hypothetical center line of the Cahokia Mounds area. It had a different orientation than other mounds. It was one of the few ridge-top mounds unique to Cahokia, and it was small. Small, yes, but contained big artifacts. And the dig revealed 3 smaller mounds beneath this ridge-top mound, each covering complex mortuary activities, including mass sacrificial graves, artifact catches, and other features. Dr. Fowler believed there to be another Woodhenge associated with Mound 72. Now, I haven't taken you to Woodhenge yet, but we're going to go. It's Stonehenge is to England as Woodhenge is to the United States or North America. So you'll be quite amazed. But they believe this may have been the original Woodhenge that was here. And I was reading something about that, but I didn't realize I could hike out to Mound 72. I thought somewhere in the woods and inaccessible. And here we are, standing in front of Mound 72. I also read that kings were buried in Mound 72 inside the museum. So that's what caught my interest. Kings, chiefs, elites. It says that Mound 72 happens to align with the winter solstice sunrise and summer solstice sunset, which indicates the importance of these events to the Cahokia Mississippians, or in other words, the culture that was here was very in tune with the stars. And it says at the western edge of the mound, there may have been a building or a charnel structure where bodies were prepared, stored for burial. And it said in this location there's at least 2 high-status extended burials with shell bead necklaces. And I believe Tammy said one of them right here, it says including a 36,600 marine shell bead and another pile of 400 arrowheads. I'm assuming that the shell beads went to someone who was had great importance. They would wrap them in the shells after curing the body. But it says a primary mound covered in this group had mass burial pits. 19, 22, and 24 young women were placed to the east, south, and southeast of the mounds. It's almost like an Egyptian burial, your servants would be entombed in the pyramids. It's kind of the same thing. You'd have your king and your queen buried in the center mound, and then you had a bunch of small, you could see there's a little mound here. On each direction there would be a mound surrounding the main mound. And so they would line, these were probably the servants of the chief. There was a hierarchy, and they would line them up on surrounding their king and queen. I mean, there is signs that some very important women were buried here also, probably the wife of the chief. But there's just a lot of different finds in this mound. I mean, they found weapons, they found they found artifacts, extensive shell bead necklaces, broken pots, it looks like. Oh yeah, there's some important. And then it says right here under the primary mound, there were 2 burial groups. 4 men were lying together on a former surface with their arms interlocked. So they obviously were important when you lock the arms and bury them. But their heads and hands had been cut off. I don't know what that's about. Near them was a... Yeah, it's sounding less important after I read that. Oops. It says near them was a deep pit. 53 young women were laid out with 2 rows and piled 2 deep. That doesn't sound like a very friendly burial right there. And it says near the post pit was a burial of a man in his 40s laying upon a bird-shaped blanket or platform of 20,000 marine shell beads, perhaps an early leader of Cahokia. Another man beneath him, there were 6 other people surrounding him. Like I said, there was probably some kings. I mean, it's just another word for chief, head honcho, but you get my point. So there were important people buried here, and then there were some that were buried horrifically, more or less, or at least what we would consider horrific, but we weren't part of this culture. We may have thought that was going to the land of paradise. Another thing, ladies and gentlemen, I want to state is that this is a designated haunted site. Reports of flashes of light, balls of energy, psychic ley lines, portal to the portal to the underworld, all that is associated with this place. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I haven't been here long enough to see that. However, right now where we're walking is a massive graveyard of thousands of residents who lived in this ancient city that once resided on these hilly lands just above the Mississippi River. And they got it all the trails are walkways. The concrete's a little hard on your feet, just to let everyone know. However, it will get you around. If I were you, I'd bring your bicycle. That's your best bet. Put it on the back of your truck, park your bicycle here, and just go for the ride, 6-10 miles. Bring some beer in your backpack, too. That's what I got going on here. That's how we do things at PGS. And it works. It's always worked for years and years. Beautiful country. Yeah, we're not in the mountains, but I'll tell you what, it's still beautiful here. There's a lot of nature. I seen a deer. I fouled in the woods. I bet you those woods are haunted. The Braves used to hide in those woods and get ready their arrows, take down a deer, bring it back. The tribe would all celebrate. They'd have a little dance around the fire. I don't blame them.
20 deer.
Butterfly.
But that's what I'm saying. They'd have to have a lot of food to feed their tribe, right? And the city had thousands. So people wonder, why did it disappear? Well, simply they outgrew themselves. They couldn't sustain themselves. You'd have to hunt for hundreds of deer a day to feed a village like that, or a city like that. And that's what happened. They sucked the place dry. It became one of the largest ghost towns in the United States of America before the United States was even formed. There's also other theories that this city was so advanced that they were in touch with extraterrestrials or aliens, and that one day, kind of like the colony that disappeared in Alaska, including all the bodies in the graveyard. One day, everybody just vanished. Food still cooking on the pot over the fire. Deer being skinned. It looked like the town was abandoned in seconds. And so that's another theory, but they say rather the culture slowly tapered off, that it wasn't paranormal or aliens, but some people still to this day believe that. Oh, see the twin mounds. They believe that aliens are the cause or for the demise of this ancient civilization that was here. We're at the twin mounds. There's one through the trees, there's one here. No excavations have been done here. They would believe that a building on top of the flat mound may have served as a charnel house. That's right, they built some of the mounds here and placed significant buildings on the mounds. So if you were 2 miles from the village, you could see your charnel house or let's say trading posts, for example, just to put it in simple terms. They built them on these mounds because they sat high above the town, 50 feet above the huts. The huts are small. And it says that the bodies of important people were prepared here for burial and then buried in an adjacent conical mound called Round Top Mound, which is nearby. Oh. Circus music? Here, you can give me that back. Thank you for holding it. And the tribe that was here used poles and thatch construction work to surround basically their village, which was a fortress. This was not just a city. This was a fortress at one time. Very advanced. Similar to, if you ever looked at the city of Cahokia and you compared it to, let's say, an Incan ancient city site, the two are similar. Only difference is one may have culture used stone, the other one used wood. However, if the stone builders could have came up here and realized, hey, we can't really work with this stone, and they could have built wood huts. Because there was ritual sacrifices. And they would have probably took place on Monk's Mound, or Monk Mound. Some people say as many as 100,000 people lived and resided around these mounds. This would be a burial mound, more than likely. Although it was never excavated, they assumed that many of the burials had taken place next to the burial house. The mound behind it held a charnel house. So the bodies could be cured, wrapped, prepped for the afterlife and burial, and then buried in this mound right next to it. Okay, here's a good pick. The city had over 120 mounds, like the one you see behind me. And then, side by side, mound by mound, they're everywhere you look, surrounding us. Very scenic, pristine here. We got Monk's Mound coming up. Monk's Mound, Monk's Mound. Monk's Mound's more like a temple. Monk's Mound contains an estimated 22 million cubic feet of earth and dirt. The base covers more than 14 acres. It rises to 100 feet. They believe that the chief had lived here or had some kind of massive building where ceremonies and governing was done. Monk's Mound. How the name Monk's mound came to be, as a French Trappist had lived near the mound in 1809 to 1813 and farmed the terraces of the large earthen mound. And obviously you know what that led to, word. People had gotten word that this was not a hill, this was a burial mound. So you can imagine when the farmer was sitting here gathering dirt and soil for his land, and a skull just happens to roll down the hill. Oops, so that's why this land is haunted. And people have seen shadows, apparitions of braves, have heard strange noises out here, balls of light. You really can't come here at night. It's a protected site, and I would do it. There's no trouble walking here at night. But the last thing I want to do is sit in an Illinois jail and have about 10 other drunk bunkmates who realize that I'm Lord Rick of the Paranormal and Ghost Society. Who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? You're not going to call anybody if you're in Illinois jail. They're just going to hold on to you and be like, aren't you a pretty boy? Monk's Mound. This was a very advanced culture. They farmed, they hunted, they had politics, ritual sacrifices. I guess what's weird about this place is that it eventually became abandoned around 1200 AD, and people just don't know why. They just, all we can do is speculate. Why was a city that was growing each year in population one day just disappear? But we see it all the time, even on our expeditions out. Now I don't know who's the culprit.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, toilet flush 10 times in a row. Again and again and again and again. And these small little ladies come walking out. It's like, where do they store all their food? Was that you flushing the toilet 20 times in a row? Over and over? Couldn't get it down?
No, that was a bunch of people leaving the bathroom.
Small little ladies leaving the bathroom. Kerplunking it. Some flushing it and instantly coming out where they didn't wash their hands. And they want to shake Junior's hand. The lady that works up here didn't wash her hands. And I told Jared she's going to want to welcome you to the Welcome Center and extend her hand out to you, and you're going to have to shake her hand. She's going to be like, "Hi, Junior, how you doing?" Oh my God, that's hilarious. Now let's go climb Monk's Mound. Tammy's done having anxiety. We can go climb it now. Anxiety from climbing all the steps. Closed Mondays and Tuesdays. Why not keep this place always open? Be nice to come out here near sunset and have a picnic in the dark with the EVP recorder running. Make it more romantic that way. I noticed that they paved as much as they could, so we're probably walking over the deceased right now. Because all this is paved, the building's lifted up and built on the top of the foundation. But it's still a nice place. I mean, they're trying to preserve it. I hope that those other mounds don't get destroyed. It's part of the city. All that was city. They had Monk's Mound in the center, and then the city extended a couple miles out.
Because the billboards have
Very advanced civilization for its time. Sophisticated culture, you know. Gomer Pyle.
What's that shit?
Welcome to the country. It's nice. We flew all the way here to be in the country, son. Get you that country fresh air, boy, in the Midwest. Gonna get you some of that country fresh air, that Midwestern air. The stockade, a walled city. They used over 20,000 logs surrounding this mound to protect the city, to keep invaders out. Do you know that some people feel the
15 to 20,000 miles.
I was right.
2 miles a mile.
2 miles. Did you know that when the Cahokians disappeared, it's thought invaders came through? But when the Spanish came here, I believe that the Spanish, seeing the city had been abandoned, so there was nobody to chase out but indigenous tribes, because other tribes took over the city once it was abandoned and utilized it. So there's other Indian culture surrounding this place. Monk's Mound is 1,000 feet long, 800 feet wide, 4 terraces high by 100 feet tall, making it the largest prehistoric mound in North America. Pretty amazing. Millions of cubic feet of earth. Each era represents a terrace. There's 4 terraces, which means that's probably about 200 years, maybe 100 years per era. But this culture only lasted from about 1000 AD till about 1350. So I'd say 300 to 350 years they remained on this site. But when it reached its peak, there could have been as many as 100,000 inhabitants with a mix of native cultures. And the lower class may have been sacrificed to please the gods so that the crops would grow, because they grew corn here and squash, which is their primary food substance that this culture ate. What is this? It's a wall of some kind or structure.
Okay, you mean?
It is. Look, there's wood posts inside. So I was right. They did have stone walls. Look. Check this out. You can see the wood through here. Can you see the wood? Whoa. Holy shit. And they put stone over it, or what is it that they used? Oh, they did this to protect it.
What?
They walled it off to protect it.
Took what?
This is the stockade anyways. Somebody was doing the naughty on the ceremonial site. Doing the naughty. Doing some hanky-panky. Some serious hanky-panky going on in the stockade on this ancient 1,000-year-old site.
Toilet paper.
Dude, I'm stuck.
Let me get back.
Can I even get out?
Oh my god. Ready?
I can't. It goes getting lazy.
There's a swamp.
It isn't swampy here. I know.
Oh, this is way cool.
Yeah. Dude, I can't even get out. Can't believe I fit through that with a backpack.
Right?
Come here with me for a second. Come over here. I'll show you why.
Dad, you dummy.
But over 20,000 logs were used to build the stockade. I thought they look like stone in depictions, but they're not. Apparently, maybe later on, when the Europeans came in, they could have tapered it off with some adobe walls to strengthen the stockade. It's hard to say. The natives could have done it as well. Everything you need is on the site. Rock, water. You could make a type of concrete or cement and cover the wood poles in the ground.
You seen a caterpillar?
Did you?
Yeah.
This civilization began to decline in 1300. And they thought it would be floods. Maybe floods had wiped out a lot of the tribe. The city had flooded. And nobody's like, no, it's not possible. Well, they found out about a year ago this area floods heavily. So flooding could have been a factor, as well as other invading tribes who may have wanted to take siege of the city. I mean, each city could have been at war with one another. There are other ones in the Midwest, but not as large as Cahokia. While others may believe deforestation, they hunted out the area, maybe the land wasn't fertile anymore for a while. Could have been a drought. There is droughts in this region, and to a degree that the corn stops growing. Even though corn's resilient, if the crops aren't good, you're not going to feed an entire city of this size that perhaps had as many as 100,000 people living surrounding this this historic location called Monk's Mound. So we're going to climb to the top of Monk's Mound. I want people to understand it's called Monk's Mound, not just because there was a farmer digging up the earth here, but he was part of a monastery or group of monks, French monks to be more precise. So it was the French monks that came to this area and realized that these mounds were not natural hills, but in fact belonged to a very ancient civilization, especially the way the bodies are laid in order to coincide with our sun. So they were advanced, and they did understand how to utilize the solar and lunar calendars so that ceremonies and rituals could continue to transpire, so that they would sacrifice people within their tribe in order for the crops to be plentiful in the next harvest. So there was, again, hierarchy. And we'll continue to head towards Monk's Mound and stand on top and get some nice photos as well. It's a beautiful day here in Illinois. And this is your founder of the Paranormal and Ghost Society, Lord Rick. It's also thought of that the tribe may have vanished due to disease. Keep in mind, explorers came through here. I see that. Explorers came through here and they would bring in diseases, which would attribute for some of the deaths within the tribes. Some entire tribes in the country were wiped out due to diseases the Europeans had brought with them, because they would travel, spread whatever diseases they had. The natives didn't have no immunity to it. They never seen a disease like that, so they couldn't treat it. So the sites could be, there's 10 different reasons why this culture could have vanished in 1300. It was strong for 200 years, and it tapered off before and after the city was built. And like I said, other indigenous tribes had taken over when they realized the city was abandoned. Nobody was guarding the guard towers. Yes, this had guard towers. There were guard towers here. They took over. And it didn't last long because the white man came in and basically said, this is our land now. See, 14 acres and 22 million cubic feet. It was built in stages from 950 to 1200. So culture began here in 900 AD, if not earlier. And probably hundreds of years before many primitive tribes, before the city was built, probably utilized these lands. Birdman tablet was discovered here. Depicts a man in a falcon dancer outfit. Nice. There was a lot of artifacts, prominent artifacts that were found here, huh? It was probably the residence of the religious or political focus on the urban center, and the leader would probably live at the top of the hill, which I knew that. In the 1830s, Amos Hill built his farm complex on the third terrace and removed a small mound on the southeast corner. He is buried on the northwest and fourth terrace. So there was somebody that was buried here on this land. It's called Monk's Mound because a group of French Trappist monks lived on the nearby mound from 1809 to 1813, planted garden, fruit trees, and wheat on the terraces of the mound. Do you know what was strange about this site? Is that they found arrowheads, which means that they weren't wiped out or at war with anyone. So it had to either be disease, or it was due to flooding, or the fact of is deforestation and no animals to hunt anymore. When you have 100,000 people, they have to eat. There's not enough deer in the area to sustain 100,000 people back in those times. Well, there probably was until they were completely hunted out. Like, I mean, that's what man does. They hunt a creature to its extinction almost, and then move on. Every 70 feet was a guard tower around this. They had guard towers here. But I thought there was only 2, but there was one every 70 feet. Basically like a fortress. You know, that's what it was. It was a city, but it was also a fortress for the tribe. Hey. You know what I'm saying? So, now we claim the steps. They also believed that the structure on the top of the hill was a temple. There was no signs of war. So there's only other couple possibilities, but they don't know. They left all their weapons here when they vanished. That's what's so strange. Their weapons, some things were just left behind as if like, where did the person go? Why did they leave so quick? Here's what's interesting, is that in this region, there's about 5 or 6 different monsters, including Bigfoot-like creatures, but they're very vicious, you know? I mean, they basically carry you off and you'll never be seen again. So my thought is maybe something else scared them off. This was a heavily forested area at one time. 4 terraces, a bazillion steps. And once we get to the top, a celebration, a hippie celebration. A little windy on top. I'm doing it right. At least I'm going up. I'm not standing at the bottom being like, oh, I'm contemplating. You know how high this mound is?
No.
How high was it? You heard me say it twice.
5,000 feet.
Dude, we're almost at sea level here in Illinois.
Oh, no,
5,000 feet.
Never mind.
If you climb 5,000 feet, you'd know it. Trust me.
I'm not even close. Okay.
100 feet, dude. That's it. That's all you're going. 100 feet up. 300 stairs, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. maybe 50 or 72. I think 72. Who's counting? It's like climbing a Aztec temple here.
Yeah.
Get about halfway up, you're like, nowhere to sit. It's like you better have not a bad knee on that temple, unless you want to roll off it. More than halfway up.
You still lead us all the way down, okay? See, we're gonna walk all that trail all the way around.
Nice sights after. Wow. St. Louis, Missouri River. There are other people here today, so getting any good paranormal evidence may be non-existent, but this is one of the more haunted places in the state of Illinois, and it's near my girlfriend's father's home, so he lives on ancient land. Beautiful St. Louis. I want to pick with St.
What was that?
That's not good. That's a gunshot.
Yeah.
Down there on the other near Woodhenge.
It was like down there. Right?
You know,
What is that?
a gunshot in the parking lot
I
over
don't
there.
think it was a gunshot.
Yeah, it was.
No, because you heard the like squealing sound and boom. Oh, maybe.
I don't know, dude, but I didn't like the sound. It bothered me.
Something canal.
Cahokia Canal?
No, it has a different name. I can't remember. I hope it's
Here's another thing, everyone. I just want to make it known that people have said that this mound here is heavily haunted. This is where the chief or the king of the tribe or of these lands would sit in his, sit back and have his dreams and visions and what he wanted for his people. It all took place, the politics of the entire city where we're standing today in the Cahokia Mound complex. It's an amazing sight, but people see shadows, balls of light, apparitions. And Native Americans do come, they do visit this site often, so it's hard to say, are they seeing apparitions or are some of the tribal members coming out here to pay their respects and sit on the mound, maybe under the stars and, do a ceremony of sorts. Because the culture had its share of ceremonies. Not anymore, it died out. But, yeah.
Stockade 2.
Stockade.
Stockade 1 is over there.
Oh, yes.
And
I mean,
that
you
136.
could look out and see mounds everywhere.
Yeah.
Way off in the distance, there's mounds. They cross the road. The road goes right through the mound area. But we're on the tallest mound, founded by French monks. Is that what we heard? An explosion? Something blew up? Dude, that's a fire. There's a friggin' fire going, dude. I don't know what that is out there. Granite City area? I heard that explosion and then a fire, unless it's a steel mill or something. But that's up on the hill. I gotta get my recorder. You know what's strange is it didn't alarm anybody, but I heard it and was like, whoa, They need to put some benches up here, sit down.
This one over there.
Maybe. Be nice to just sit out here for a little bit. St. Louis is looking rather lovely today. Large building, 104 feet by 48 feet, stood on the back end of Monk's Mound, which would be right. This is the back end. Large pits in the center held posts supporting the roof, which could have been 40 feet in height. A fenced courtyard surrounded the building. A large post stood in front of it, and the west side was damaged when the west side mound collapsed. This is where governing took place. Cahokia Creek ran up through here. So they had water and everything to sustain itself. I don't know, man, what that was, a fire or something. Legends and stories and lore about the city did vanish. However, there were tribes like the Ponca and the Quapaw area. Had spent hundreds of years in silence about what really happened here. Maybe they don't even know. Because that would be branches off the tribe or city that was here. There would have to be disbursement. They wouldn't have disappeared. Many people from the city could have just moved on and decided to create villages in other parts of the Americas. Maybe when the Europeans came through, they felt threatened and they decided, hey, we need to get out of the Mississippi River Valley, maybe head to the mountains of, per se, Utah, Nevada, California. We don't know where those tribes dispersed. They couldn't have just vanished. Yes, some people did vanish. Some tribes did. Or did they really vanish? Or did they purposely disappear? Nobody knows. Archaeology, further studies show us that the Cahokians were so large, in fact, that they spread as far north as Minnesota, or the state of Minnesota. So this was a large city, and there was a lot of descendants, so they didn't entirely disappear. However, many of the tribal members may have continued to, many of the smaller tribes outside of the city may have moved on to more areas that were more lush or provided a better food subsistence, since a lot of the food and forests were wiped out when this city was built. Heard another gunshot. Something's going on, man. There's someone like parked in the woods shooting guns below. That's illegal here. I better get back. I don't want to get shot. I mean, you can see the city of St. Louis is nearby, and sometimes you get people who don't value these ancient places. Not like we do. Some people say that this city was inhabited 700 years, from 700 to 1400 AD. Other people say, no, 1000 AD to about 1300, 1350. Whatever you may think, it's an ancient site, and it was inhabited more than a couple hundred years, which makes it one of the oldest ghost towns in America, true or not. I mean, think about it. We go to Bodie, it declined in the 1800s, 150 years ago. This declined hundreds of years ago, and Bodie only lasted a few decades. This city lasted probably a few hundred years, which makes it one of the oldest haunted sites in America, where shadows, ghosts are seen, and others, even other tribes, consider this a sacred place, and they see it as mystical, or an area of energy, psychic energy to be more specific. It's a place of power, strength. You never know what kind of EVP you'll get here as well. We can look at the stockade below. I'll take you guys to the stockade. Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto came to the area in 1540. By then, this place had been abandoned. So obviously the Spaniards didn't bring disease to this tribe. However, that doesn't mean disease did not exist. Many cultures, many societies were wiped out by disease. The plague wiped out millions. A third of the world, perhaps, or at least a third of Europe's population. And so epidemics swept through every culture, and that's what could have happened here. Nobody knows. And I don't know if this place is haunted. I can tell you from my experience, ancient places, there's been so many sacrifices, war, disease, death, good times as well, such as ceremonial dances and celebrations for harvest. So the good, the bad, and the ugly surrounds this city. Therefore, it's safe to say that the spirits still roam it, because this is all they would have known as this city stood hundreds of years and eventually vanished from history, and all the lore, stories, tales of its mythological tales, and all the strange cryptids and creatures like Momo and Bigfoot and the Pepe Lake monster, the Enfield horror, etc., etc. Monsters like that they would have been aware of, and they would have had to sustain themselves. They would have had to, instead of fight it, they would have had to live with it. And so back in the day when De Soto came here, this area was like a jungle. The trees were starting to grow back, it was lush, but nobody was here, it was left abandoned. Clay pots, grinding stones, areas where there would have been a campfire, now gone, just abandoned. And while other tribes may have came here to utilize this place, they may have also seen it as a forbidden place, a place of the dead. Because this place was considered an area where you could go into the afterlife or end up in the underworld. A portal, a sense. So maybe these people all disappeared in a giant portal. Nobody knows. But it's fun to kind of have all these speculations and theories, and even if they don't mean anything, it gives you something to think about when you stand 100 feet on top of one of the tallest points here in the Cahokia Mound Valley. 360 degrees of forest and urban city life. And a stockade which once guarded the chief on this very mound. This is Lord Rick. Check us out, www.paranormalghostsociety.org. But just being here, it's like being in the lost city of Atlantis. Just amazing. That's what makes this such a grand place. It's not only ancient, it's one of the largest mounds in North America from prehistoric times. Although I've seen some mounds similar in size. If you go up near Cedar Key, Florida, they have an amazing mound. There are mounds found north of Cahokia, and they're not as large, but they are originally from the same tribe that was here, the Cahokians. So their influence spread hundreds of miles from here. And that's probably what happened. The cultures decided as they migrated to form smaller villages on the outskirts of Cahokia and eventually faded off little by little. And their ancestors still exist today, but not in comparison to how large this place once was in its heyday. So I don't know if I'll get any EVPs here, and I don't know if we'll find anything, but I know that this place was very large. This looks like the area where the monks, when the French Trappists and monks came here, it looks like they took a lot of the dirt to be used on their farms. And you can see there's a huge break in the mound. The terrace should be straight across, not have a break. This culture, I don't believe, built roads, but they did build their homes on these mounds, and very linear, very well platted, one hut next to the next hut. Nothing with, you didn't have a lot of scattered huts here and there unless they were sites of great importance. Nice view. There is a bench. Sit there. Sit there. Sit there. Oh, be careful not to fall. Okay? That goes for me too. I'll be careful not to fall. It's a long ways down. See, I can walk with my feet half on the steps. Earlier, Tammy took my picture standing half off the step and my back end facing the entire stairs. Because we deal with a lot of heights out west, climbing mountains, cliffs. We have to have some good balance, because if you don't, you could fall into a ravine off a gorge and die. Fall into a gorge and die. Clear off cliffs. So you got to have some good balance in the wilderness. The ground can be weak even hiking on well-used, maintained trails. You go right off into the ice and die. There's a lot of ice-covered lakes in the spring you hike along. So, but you get my drift. There's a lot of stairs. Be careful. Last place we're going is Woodhenge. It's off to our right. And that's our final site for our investigation today. I did a lot of EVP recording. We'll see if I get any strange tribal voices. And back in New York, we used to get EVPs on occasion of ancient languages spoke. I also captured a few totem pole apparitions out on this haunted road where a village used to reside. So nothing surprises me when it comes to a site of this that is this ancient. I'm going to explain because places with history that are ancient also tell a story. And so this is a very old site. It said several large ceremonial buildings had burned around 1150 AD. More than likely this site had suffered. Maybe it was burned in war, battle. It's hard to say for sure. We're still going down the steps. But we will make it. Amazingly, I'm doing quite well considering I ate three adult gummy candies. Or edibles, I should say. And then I got a new vape cartridge that lets you puff CBD oil at any time. Therefore, if I need medicine for my knee or my back, I have it on hand. And vape is a lot more acceptable in public than it would be to walk around with a joint or a bong. So it is definitely a perk that I've been enjoying today. So we're going to head to Woodhenge. Good thing I'm done with my papers. I just lost them. They just blew away. I don't know, dude. Probably the top of the mountain when I was bending over. They're gone. My notes are gone, dude. Clearly gone. It's okay.
Look, this one.
And what people don't realize, I was talking earlier about different monsters that are native to the area. The ancient natives were aware of these creatures, like the Piasa bird that was devouring the devourer of man. I went in those caves. It's pretty spooky. It feels like something at one time lived in that cave and still might today live in that cave or visit it time to time. Just want to say cheers, mate. We're at Monk's Mound in the ancient city of Cahokia. Considered to be one of the most ancient, strangest, or mysterious sites in the state of Illinois. The Cahokians were very advanced. It was woodland Indians that came to the area and they built mounds such as these. And the entire city surrounded this open area. There's mounds everywhere, smaller ones. And they had a complex on the mound where the chief had lived and ancient ceremonies were performed. So that deserves a drink, right? Nice white Russian. Last place we're going to be venturing off to is called Woodhenge. It's a solar calendar for the solstices, obviously. Served as a giant calendar for the Cahokians. But we stood up there, it's 100 feet up. That may not seem like a lot, but it is when you're standing in the Midwest or the hills of central Illinois like we are today. I can't ask for more. I've gone to the Seven Gates of Hell, famous urban legend ghost story type of place about a haunted road or some railroad overpasses. I don't believe everything I hear, but I keep an open mind. It's a beautiful day here in Illinois. Like I said, I can't ask for more. I toured Alton Cemetery, the McPike Mansion, I'm at the Cahokia and Mounds, all the well-known mystery spots surrounding the St. Louis greater area. Went to the St. Louis Zoo. It's beautifully kept. The animals look pretty happy. Well fed, well maintained, a lot of nice natural looking habitats, including the butterfly gardens, and where you could sit there and butterflies land on your nose. It's awesome. And there's a bird area, a bird sanctuary you can go in and look at cardinals like 2 inches from your face. It's a badass zoo. When you come here, you make sure you visit the zoo, but you also make sure you visit Cahokia and Mounds and a couple of these other spots that we're covering on this trip. This is Lord Rick. Ghost. 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 My ass, ghost. Just now I throw it back there. Look, ghost gone. We're gonna go to Woodhenge. This is Stonehenge's sister. Maybe the same tribe. It crossed the land bridge, made it over this way. They had something to do with Stonehenge. You never know. There could be a mystery connection. Oh, here it is right here. Oh, yes. We've made it. Stonehenge. This is huge, man. This is huge.
Well, each pole is 24.7 feet from the next.
That's pretty tall. 24. And they're all cut to the same size.
Not tall.
How long?
They're 24 feet apart,
Oh, yeah.
each one.
Because it measures time with the sun. That's cool. Like a clock, kind of. Cool. Let's check it out.
But see, it only works when you're standing at the top of the mound, looking down. That's the center point.
That's Monk's Mound, right across from it.
That's how they can tell the time. You have to look
By
down.
looking at it?
No, you have to
Where
look
the
at
sun was?
The sun was in relation to it.
Wow.
And the equinoxes, they would be over there. And the solstices were over there. Or no, we're dead center. And the other two were over here.
Wow. Woodhenge. This is the last spot of the day that Tammy took me to here. Saved the best for last, right? And here's what it says. Okay, this is what it would have looked like. Here's the depiction. I'll zoom in on it so you can kind of see. That's because you could tell time from the top of Monk's Mound, which is the major mound in the city of Cahokia. You look down on it, and you could tell what time of year it was, what the dates were. It says at least 5 large post-circle monuments were built at this location from 11 to 1200 AD, each with a different diameter and a number of posts. What?
This number 3 is the one that's here.
So 5 Woodhenges were here. Because, I mean, obviously the logs would become rotted. They'd have to replace them. There was flooding here. Major flooding. They checked the sediment at the Horseshoe Lake and found 2 major floods hit this area. Anyhow, it says, Woodhenge 3 is the circle most extensively excavated and is one of the reconstructed ones here. So yes, this is not original, it is reconstructed, but this is how it would look. The sun rising above the bluffs to the east aligns with certain posts on the perimeter as viewed from a central observation point. The most important alignments are the winter and summer solstices marking the southern and northernmost sunrise positions, and the fall and spring equinoxes. When the sun rises due east midway between the solstice posts, when the sun rises due east midway between the solstice posts. Also at the equinoxes, the rising sun appears to emerge from the front of Monk's Mound, perhaps confirming a link between the sun and the chief who ruled from the top of the mound. The excavations also revealed hundreds of houses and pits, showing this was a residential area before or after the construction of the Woodhenges. Fragments of wood in some of the holes indicate red cedar, a sacred wood for most Indians, was used for posts and building their huts. We're going to head inside Woodhenge. I mean, this was a very unique site. You had the large mound off in the distance, the houses or residential communities surrounding it, and of course surrounding this calendar. Basically, it's just a large sundial. The poles align with the sun. It's just that simple. Hold on. See, we're in the middle of October, folks, so there's not a lot of nature, but there are some birds, and there's still some flowers here and there blooming. So I do my best to also cover nature because that comes with this sacred land. The deer, the nature, the fawns, the does, the bucks, all the raccoons, all of that comes with this territory. You have primitive, ancient territory surrounded by surrounding cities. Cities have always been here. First you had Cahokia, next you had St. Louis. No, not a cent of energy, no EMF here. Probably no power lines to interfere. Well, across the street, but this is not setting them off.
There's a highway, it's a marker.
Get out.
Highway used to go right through here.
Where is it? I can't read. Oh, Division of Highway, State of Illinois. So you mean that it used to be, now this is the new one? Out here? Huh. Right, so the highway went right through the middle of Woodhenge? Wow. Really? It's a replica, but this is where the excavation showed this is where it was at. There was holes in wood and in the ground in a circle. So they just replicated this wood is all, but it's the right site. They just had the highway come through, and I bet you there's a lot of accidents. I bet you this was a cursed area. They say a lot of things over the years have happened out here. Could be because they're building houses and highways on sacred land. So this was the final site, everyone. The Cahokia Mounds. The Cahokia Mounds complex. It's more than just an area where there was grass huts or burial mounds. There's also Woodhenge. And then you have the fortress, a few fortress walls, which at one time they had to use at least 20,000 trees, basically trees that they cut and then buried in the ground, maybe even covered it with some kind of mortar to strengthen those walls from invaders, which could have came to this area, and this civilization could have been at war at one time with another tribe, as history depicts time and time again. And right near where we have, Woodhenge, we have this burial mound next to it, which may have not been a burial mound. It could have just been an irrelevant site. Could have been the sweat house. You know, these cities had their own different complex. They were rather advanced. They weren't just a bunch of grass huts. They had buildings and complexes on these mounds as well. So no matter where you stood in the city, you seen areas of great importance and worship. It's magnificent, everyone. I'll zoom in out so you can see it to its entirety. With that in mind, I'm out of here. Just want to wish everybody, say peace. I'm out of here. I'm at Woodhenge in the ancient city of Cahokia. It was larger than London in 1200 AD. This part of Illinois has a lot of Native American legends. The other day, I was at the Piasa bird site. It's a pictograph of a giant cryptid or monster. It's a beastly, kind of half human, kind of half man bird that was devouring members of the tribe until a chief had defeated it by jumping on its back, and they shot it with poison arrows. And I didn't realize it, but I started roaming these ancient caves where this monster or these thunderbird-like creatures at one time probably dwelled. And if they didn't, that possibly could have been where the village had sucked refuge from this creature, and they painted the bird or drew or etched petroglyphs into the cliff wall as a sign of strength, showing that we're the tribe that defeated the giant bird. And it may have been maybe the bird, they went in and killed the bird, that could have been where it dwelled. I don't know, I have to go research the history, or they lived in those caves to hide from this thing. So therefore they painted it over their cave as a warning and as a sign and as a vote of confidence and strength to those other tribes that passed by and seen the pictograph of the giant bird. So the area is very strange. You have lore of giant birds, a city that vanished, and only its mounds stand today, a remnant of once a great city. And off at the distance, to remind us at one point in history, a great city had risen. And it had fallen. And only today, its ghosts remain. This is Lord Rick. Check us out, www.paranormalghostsociety.org. This is the Cahokia Mound ancient city complex, or what remains of it. We're at Woodhenge, Monk's Mound, 100 feet tall. And even across the road are mounds as well. Where dead men tell tall tales.